Hello YouTube. So we're back and we're going to continue on this Tekno SCT410.3. It's the team build, and we're building a short course truck to race on a turf track. So as I told you before, I'm only doing highlighting parts of the build that are, I think, either need to have your attention drawn to it because it's tricky or something unique or there's a little bit better way to do it, or because it's team build upgrades or a couple of the extra durability upgrades that I added in on top of the team build. So the first thing that I'm going to show you, so I'm going to cut to a video here of me at my bench putting the suspension arms onto the front end. Now this is the same thing that I did on the back end, but I wanted to do a video real quick of how you know that you're all set. So what we need to do is, in the instructions manual, it calls for using either a number 19 drill bit or a 4mm reamer. So the 4mm reamer is by far the better way to go. Not only will it do a better job, a nice smoother job on the inside of the suspension arm, on the hinge pin side of the suspension arm, but you also won't run the risk of damaging that hole that you will with a drill bit. With a drill bit, you're just going to chew the end up and stuff. So I'd highly encourage you to invest in that 4mm reamer. So let's cut to that video real quick and then we'll continue on. All right, so one of the things that I found interesting about this build is that they have you buy a reamer or have a drill bit. So I bought this 4mm Energy reamer, and it's just a shaft with some wedges chopped out of it. What you need to do is get your arm and then drop the shaft in. So you see, this is out of the package. It doesn't just drop. It goes part of the way, and it flops pretty okay, but what you need to do is use the reamer, put it in, rub it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Tiny little plastic shavings will come out. And once you do that enough, so you get your arm and you get your shaft, and it drops right through. So that's when you know there's no more resistance left inside the arm. Okay, so once you get the hinge pin side of your suspension arms reamed out, you get it all built up. Basically, the rest of the front end goes together like the manual calls for. The one difference is, for the team build, is we've replaced the front block here. The A block is what it's called. We've replaced that from the plastic stock piece with the aluminum upgrade piece, which here is TKR 5161. So there are 4 of these blocks on the car. Clearly there are 2 for the front end and there are 2 for the back end. The team build stipulated that we replace 2 of these blocks, both of the leading edge blocks, as the car faces forward, which I thought was a little bit odd. I would expect that we'd do the ones on the outside, right? So the front block on the front like this shows, and then the back block on the rear end block, but that's not the case. We do the front block on both sides for the team build. I'm not sure why we don't do them all. It saves us $46, almost $50 by not doing the other 2. Maybe down the line I will end up doing both. We'll see how they hold up, but at any rate, this is what that looks like. So then when we move on to bag H, putting the front spindle and the CVAs and stuff like that together, in my printed manual, which I scanned to create this screenshot, it's not in the download manual. This step is missing from the downloaded manual that I got offline. So I want to really highlight this. So what I've read is that Tekno was very proud when they designed this in the EB version of this, the e-buggy version of this, and that they designed in more steering throw than any of their competition, because everybody kept saying, we want more steering, we want more steering. Of course, racers, we want more steering. But what they discovered is that too much steering throw ended up being slower on the track, in that the excessive steering input caused the back end to come loose. right? So in order to counteract that, the counterintuitive solution was to reduce the steering throw, thereby bringing the back end in line. So what I'm imagining is the front end is trying to outsteer the back end's ability to follow, and the back end kicks out, slowing your line down. So maybe that's why the online instructions did not include this step, and it was added later, and that's what's in my printed manual, because it was something they found out after the model was released. So the stock setting, right, is using 2 washers. There's these TKR 1221 washers. These washers are 0.5 millimeter thick, and the manual calls to use 2. The team build calls to use 4. They only give you 8, and you need to use 2 later on in the build. So if you're going to follow the team build, you'll need to get more of these washers, but I recommend don't. And here's why. Because if you look down the inside of the steering knuckle here, right, this is the hole that screw is going to screw into. You can see that there's only this much space between it and the hub, and then even a little bit less space between this and the backward sweeping of the steering arm hub. So if the team build suggests using 4 washers, we get our steering limiter screw, we get our 4 washers, we pile them up, and this is what it looks like. It's a fair amount of washers. And then when you try to screw it in, and all hell breaks loose. We've got interference here with the sweep back, the plastic from the swept back steering arm. We've got interference here with the bearing housing for the CV joint. These washers are essentially just too damn big. The diameter of these washers is too large. So I thought, all right, well, if they're too big, I'll go ahead and I'll take my half-round file, modeler's file, and I'll file down a bit of the hub here so that I can create a bit of space for that washer to go. And I'd file, and I'd put the washer down, and I'd file some more, and I'd put the washer down, and I could never get it to enough. So when I laid the washer down, I could never get this circle lined up, and I was just chewing away too much of the hub. Like, this is ridiculous. There's got to be a better way to get the 4 millimeters of recommended, 4 millimeters? I'm sorry, 4 washers, 2 millimeters of extra space. So this is what it looked like when I finally gave up on it, right? So you can see right here, it's really got a lot of material that I've filed away. And I got some chewing up of here for where the tip of the file kept jabbing in, and some slippage, and I just was making it really ugly. So I measured it up, right? So 2 millimeters total for 4 washers. That's how I knew they were 0.5 millimeter each. And then I dug into my Tamiya hop-up aluminum spacer set. So as you guys may know already, majority of my builds are Tamiya, so I have a lot of Tamiya spare parts. This is a Tamiya part number 53539. I've got a couple of these laying around, and they come with multiple different spacers. Okay, so this is what it comes with, right? They have silver spacers and blue spacers. The silver spacers are on the 0.5 millimeter, and the blue spacers are on the whole millimeter. So I grabbed a 2 millimeter blue spacer. I got 2 of them, one for each side, and I replaced the big washers from the Tekno kit with the same amount of thickness with one single spacer from the Tamiya kit. You can see how the diameter here is much, much smaller, and in fact it's exactly the same diameter as the hex head of the screw. And it just screwed in just nice and perfect. There's no extra rubbing. I get the space that I need without any interference from around. So if you don't want to file down the washers to make a couple little V's in the washers, which would be a ton of work, if you don't want to file down your steering hub, which I didn't want to have to do, getting yourself a spacer kit. It doesn't have to be the Tamiya one. I just know that this one works. And this is what that looks like from the other angle. On the other side that I didn't file up, right? So this is what that looks like. Once you get the kit all put together, you need to measure your arms. So one of the things that I like to do is when I put my arms together, I screw the ball connectors down until the plastic is flush with the remainder of the threads. So I just screw them down until there are no more threads showing, and that's as far as I go with it. That way they're both exactly perfectly even. They're equidistant from the center of the tightener nut here. And then I measure, right? And the measurement here needs to be 20.5 millimeters. So then I use the turnbuckle wrench to tighten them once they're on the vehicle. I don't try to get it to the 20.5 or whatever the measurement happens to be off the vehicle. I just bring those ball ends down until the plastic is flush with the threads, install it to the vehicle, and then use the turnbuckle wrench to get it to the 20.5. But this is 20.49, which is close enough for government work. Not nearly good enough a driver to notice a difference of 0.01 in my vehicle setup. And then this is what the front end looks like once it's completely built up. I kind of wish these weren't blue because that's like the only blue on the entire car. It sticks out like a sore thumb, but you know, what are you going to do? So that's where this video is going to end. Coming up next is the steering assembly, and I did deviate some from the manual with some hop-ups on the steering assembly, as well as the front end assembly stuff. So there'll be another video forthcoming for bag I and J. And then we're getting towards the end of the build. So again, appreciate you for watching. If you liked it, please leave a like. If you've got questions about the build, go ahead and leave a comment, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can and I see it. So thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next video.